You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Monday the 22nd of July 2013. Jury out to decide verdict in Wickham Muslim grooming gang trial. 3 convicted over sexual assault in Ilford. Ireland, Somali Muslim gets a pass for slitting the throats of 4 goats in his home. Traps, unable to obey the law of the land. Taliban recruit starving orphans with sweets and 60p bribes. Food prices forecast to treble as world population soars. Thought for the day, when it's this hot. And finally, when is a poop not a poop? Before the news today, I noted with interest Kugelschreiber and his digging into names. Regarding mine, look up pre-Islamic history and the Mozart tribes. Apparently, we were the one tribe who killed Muhammad's envoys. Now at some time we must have joined the Ottoman Empire in their invasion of Europe, and of course they reached the gates of Hungary. At this time a portion split off, stayed in the then Austro-Hungarian Empire and formed the basis of the Mozart family, of which I am a distant relative. If Kugelschreiber can dig anything else up, please feel free and let me know. UK news. Jury out to decide verdict in Wickham Muslim grooming gang trial. Ribbon trial, jury remains out. The jury in the trial of 10 men accused of grooming, trafficking and sexually abusing a young girl was sent out to consider its verdict. Jurors retired at 12:50 p.m. Tuesday afternoon on the 16th of July after Judge Ian Pringle concluded his 2-day review of the evidence heard during the 9-week Ribbon trial. The prosecution say the girl was plied with alcohol and drugs and repeatedly raped by a child sex gang in the High Wycombe area for almost 5 years. The girl was just 11 when the alleged abuse began in 2007. Oxford Crown Court was told how the girl, who can't be named for legal reasons, was groomed and raped by Iblal Fiaz, who forced her to perform sex acts on his friends and his brother Kazim Fiaz. Jurors were told how Fiaz threatened to burn down the girl's family home, rape her mother and ruin her reputation if she didn't go along with his demands. The 10 defendants are Iblal Fiaz, 21, of St George's Close, 4 counts of rape of a child under 13, 7 counts of rape, 2 counts of conspiracy to rape, 8 counts of trafficking for sexual exploitation, 2 charges of sexual activity with a child and 1 count of causing or inciting a child to engage in sexual activity. Kazim Fiaz, 22, of St George's Close, 2 counts of rape of a child under 13, 1 count of rape, 2 counts of conspiracy to rape and 1 count trafficking for sexual exploitation. Amar Rafiq, 19, from Kent Road in West London, 4 counts of rape. Mohammed Adnan, 21, of Upper Green Street, 2 counts of rape. Madassa Hussain, 29, of Abbey Barn Road, 2 counts of rape. Jabroin Khan, 21, of Rutland Avenue, 1 count of conspiracy to rape. Kasim Dad, 23, of Gibbs Close, 1 count of rape and 1 count of conspiracy to rape. Ramiz Ali, 21, of West End Street, 2 counts of rape. Junaid Sharif, 26, of Cambridge Crescent, 1 count of rape. Asif Hussain, 21, of Selfield Road, 1 count of rape. 3 convicted over sexual assault in Ilford. 3 men who raped and assaulted a vulnerable young woman have been convicted at Snaresbrook Crown Court. Radio Britain reported on this case in June, however we missed the connection to our earlier report in May that these men were originally arrested and charged with operating a child prostitution ring. It seems the CPS could only secure convictions for the rape of a vulnerable 18-year-old girl who was targeted by Nabil Ahmed of Chadwell Heath Lane, Romford, when he saw her distressed after an argument with her friend in the street. The victim wanted to go to a friend's home to stay the night, but they took her to another address in Ilford, where she was introduced to Hassan Raza. The victim was left asleep in a bedroom, but in the early hours the following morning, Naeem Ahmed and Nabil Ahmed raped her. When they left, Raza came in and pretended to feel sorry for the woman before he sexually assaulted her. The men were accused of a number of offences against 6 people, including 2 girls in Essex County Council care. No references were made concerning convictions for any of the other charges. The judge told the men to expect lengthy prison sentences. World at 8 states, what is it with these Muslims? Do they have too much testosterone? You could leave them in a room with 100 non-Muslim females and they just perform regardless. Is this why the third world is breeding us out? They need a bit of bromide, matey. European news. Ireland. Somali Muslim gets a pass for slitting the throats of 4 goats in his home. A man slaughtered 4 baby goats in a house on a busy housing estate, a court heard yesterday. Rashid Kabaga, 23, pleaded guilty to the charge of cruelty to animals in the Balluna estate, Tralee, County Kerry last April. The asylum seeker, originally from Mogadishu in Somalia and a devout Muslim, had also pleaded guilty at the Circuit Criminal Court in Tralee to using the house as an abattoir when it was not licensed as such. Gibaga, 23, also admitted a 3rd count of failing to ensure the animals didn't suffer. Judge Carol Moran imposed a 1-year suspended prison sentence for cruelly torturing, terrifying and killing the goats, contrary to Section 1 Protection of Animals Act 1911. World says if this guy was a Brit or a Provo he would get the book thrown at him in Ireland. Are the judges there just as stupid as our lot? Traps unable to obey the law of the land. The latest Muslim riots in the Paris suburbs follows the arrest of a Muslim convert who attacked police when they stopped his wife for wearing a veil in public and told her to remove it. Up to 300 people attacked the local police station on Saturday night, throwing stones at police and burning a car. Le Monde reports Minister of the Interior Manuel Valls has denounced the violence, saying there is no reason this violence is acceptable. World Today comments, get used to it. You let these people in and, like us, don't deport them or discourage them in any way, and they'll continue to riot and cause mayhem until they get what they want. Your country. World news. Taliban recruit starving orphans with sweets and 60p bribes. Taliban insurgents in Afghanistan are bribing starving children as young as 8 years old to plant deadly roadside booby traps, be decoys in ambushes and even act as suicide bombers. Despite the Islamic fundamentalists' claim they have no children in their ranks, extremists have been actively recruiting orphaned and homeless young boys and training them to use guns, improvised explosive devices and suicide vests. In return they ply the desperate youngsters with sweets and chocolate, an investigation for Channel 4's Dispatches programme has learnt. A World Date reporter states they're doing the same in poor areas of the UK to the desperate and the stupid. Food prices forecast to treble as world population soars. Food prices were last night tipped to treble over the next 20 years as an explosion in the world's population triggers a global fight. A government advisor said everyday products such as cocoa and meat could become relative luxuries by the 2040s. Professor Tim Benton, head of Global Food Security Working Group, added there could be shortages in the UK in the future as the emerging middle class in Southeast Asia sparks a revolution in food flows such as the trade in grain and soya around the world. Professor Benton from the University of Leeds told the Daily Telegraph, food is going to be competed for on a global scale. There's been a lot written about where food prices are going to go, but they're certainly going to double, with some trebling. It's not just fruit and vegetables, but everything. The shock forecast came as the chief executive of Tesco, Philip Clark, warned the era of cheap food was over because of the forecast surge in demand. In an interview over the weekend, the supermarket chief said, over the long run I think food prices and the proportion of income spent on food may well be going up. He spoke as a new poll indicated that consumers would be prepared to pay more for their groceries if they thought it would benefit British farmers. Mr Clark is the second supermarket boss after Waitrose's Mark Price to back experts' warnings that rock bottom prices would eventually lead to quality being sacrificed. There was a time when we could go to South Africa to buy fruit and be the only retailer there, Mr Clark said, adding, not anymore, it's full up with wealthy Chinese and Indian buyers. World Date states, yup, and we have made them wealthy. We've moved all our manufacturing to these countries and still buy huge amounts of mainly crap from them. We also give them foreign aid and pay for their peasants to live over here. China and India are laughing all the way to the food bank. Serious steps will have to be taken well before 2040, my friends. Thought for the day. When it's this hot. When it's this hot it makes people grumpy, and even I, of the even temperament, am feeling slightly grouchy or rather sensitive, which is a word I prefer, and glancing at several news items is bringing out that sensitivity. Now I hope no one feels that I'm self-gratifying in my thoughts, because I do put a heavy nationalist swing on everything, and sometimes I go into infinity and beyond. Some of the news items go into orbit by themselves, of course. Read children with sunburn call in social services. Firstly, don't let the little buggers out during the hours of 12 to 3, put sunscreen on them and give them water to drink. Social services are taking over from parents now, are they? Bring back the days of wonderful large prams with sun canopies where very young babes and children could sit and guzzle fruit drinks in the cool instead of being wheeled around shopping cramped up in pushchairs. God help us. Then the truly awful news of Michael Adibalejo being attacked, maybe by warders, and having 2 teeth knocked out. How terrible. They should have cut off his sodding head. In print he's suspected of attacking Lee Rigby. Oh brother, when most of his countrymen have it on their mobiles, the whole disgusting thing, and he is a suspect. Of course we nationalists all know that the only person in this country to be called guilty before he was even tried was our Nick Griffin, who was customarily pilloried by our media. But of course they saved this treatment for a white nationalist, not a black Muslim, who's shown no shame for his atrocious act. Those warders need medals for not killing Adibalejo. I would not have been so sparing. Annihilate, annihilate. A very good friend of mine and the British National Party worked in Broadmoor for 25 years, as indeed did his father. He had to leave because they brought in new rulings that forbade any form of defence if any one of these violent mad bastards attacked you. The prison service is now the same and runs along the lines of our armed forces. Get sent to these countries but don't conquer. See the enemy but don't fight. Walk around but don't defend yourself. All bunkum and all human rights related. Let the UN and NATO bigwigs go to Afghanistan and see it in all its glory, where our boys and those of the US are being used as target practice for the Taliban, who know their areas so very well. It's all a training exercise, my friends, and all will revert to what Afghanistan has always been, an enormous drug cartel which is funded from the West for jihadists to target the West with enormous profits gained by all sides. Now I've cleared up Afghanistan, I'll move forward. Poor old Cameron seems to have put his foot in things despite trying to win over the sheeples. All the furor over marked or patterned cigarette boxes is very odd. Does whether a fag box is pretty or not actually make a difference? No, of course not. If someone is going to kill themselves by fags, they'll do it, or else this stupid tobacco will extend to bottles of alcohol, won't it? The baseline is the addicts don't care what is outside their addiction, it's what's inside it, tobacco and alcohol. Our local Tesco's, while plumping up the price of bottled water during a heatwave and warning us of more expensive food on the way due to demands in China and India, have blocked off the views of fags and such by metal doors, rather like the Bank of England. And I very nearly peed myself laughing about this, and I hopefully am a long way from tenor ladies. Do they really think that we Brits are that stupid? It takes a store like Tesco to really get me going. They market halal meat marked and yet use Thai chickens which have been slaughtered 9 ways to hell, and let's not dwell on the awful shrimp and prawn industries we foster in eastern countries. If bottled water goes up, use tap at home. We don't live in the third world yet. We are so indoctrinated in this country that we think only food and water from a supermarket is good enough. We in this country were more or less totally self-sufficient even after the last war. We had butcher shops for local meat, we had grocer shops for local hard goods, and we had greengrocers for local fruit and veg. We had liquor stores for liquor, we had shoe shops for shoes, clothes shops for clothes and toy shops for toys. In short, we had high streets and little markets, all of which were cheaper than Tesco's, Asda, Waitrose and Sainsbury's. You can't get much cheaper than Lidl or Aldi, but then the selections are all often one-offs. Alcohol should never have been allowed out of the licensed stores in the first place. It's only since it's been allowed in corner shops and supermarkets and practically everywhere else that the wholesale drunkenness of the youth of the nation has exploded, as our young holidaymakers in Marmaris, Turkey are only too happy to show. Whilst on one side I couldn't help but feel that our young were inflicting the same sort of pain that the Muslims are inflicted on the UK and Europe, alias I'm over here get over it scenario, the other side of me is ashamed of the way our youth behave abroad, and it is a relatively new thing. In days of yore, and just after the invention of the wheel, alcohol was not widely available in the UK. It isn't the Ladette syndrome, it is the governments making booze available for all and sundry, cheap and cheaper, and also making it available to generations that are frankly not used to having booze available. In my days, 60s, Babycham was the elixir of growing up. I came from middle upper class roots where a cocktail cabinet was always there, and my mother, bless her, didn't drink till she was in her late 60s, even then it was the occasional G&T. People didn't drink a lot generally, wine was a treat and not forever on hand, and if you went out to a pub the men drank beer or whiskey and the youngsters were not encouraged into most pubs in those days. I'm not talking about the hard drinking university towns where the elite drank until they couldn't stand up, no change there. I'm now talking about the working man and woman, a glass of sherry at Christmas, a stout or two for the guys, or the normal Friday night booze up. But this did not make booze open season for their children, which it is now. I've seen over the past 30 years the way the establishment have pushed booze into the arms, or rather mouths, of youngsters of all classes and backgrounds, and we are now reaping the whirlwind. Nobody from any country likes to see their underdressed girls drunk as skunks with equally inebriated boys. You don't have to be a Muslim to dislike it. I dislike it, and apart from liking a glass or the odd barrel of red wine, I've been through rehab with one of my sons and it ain't pleasant. We must be careful in this country of falling into the rhetoric of no booze because it coincides with the edicts of Islam and creates diversity immediately. I'm not a Muslim, but anyone with half a brain can see the way one's youth behaves is indicative of the way they will grow up, and to withdraw booze from any one sector of society will create a black market, which indeed is fed from our immigrant population to our own in the form of drink, fags and drugs. Islam, whilst decrying the truly awful situation, is also making money from it, both in Turkey and Bradford. I will finish on a truly show-stopping article in the Mail Saturday, that of the poorest estates in the UK and their supercars hired for the school prom. It would seem that all the inhabitants of this estate are Asian. The estate is Tower Hamlets, of course, and these kids are 16. Now, poorest estate doesn't wash. All their parents or whatever are on benefits, I bet you, as well as working several jobs or businesses through relatives. So in reality, who is paying for these cars? You are. Whether by taxes or by fueling the black market of drugs, drink or illicit fags, buying or eating huge amounts of Asian food, wearing sweatshop clothes made in London. These people, and I include the lot of them, should be deported. These kids are teenagers and in a couple of years they'll marry and they'll produce more brats who need feeding and paying for. It also brings to mind the millions that we give India to feed their poor when they send their poor over here where we're paying double bubble yet again. Stop all foreign aid, especially to India and Pakistan, and use that money to deport most of these parasites with their ever-growing families back home. They have countries to go to. We don't. I watched The Kingdom of Heaven the other day for the third time, and the one thing that struck me was when we lost Jerusalem and we all filed out. What happens if we lose England? Where will we go to? Where will we hide? We don't have anywhere else to go. Remember that when someone accuses you of being racist or a bigot. This is our home, and it is the only one we Brits have. I don't know which is worse, our idiots who let down our country or the foreigners who cash in on it. You decide. And finally, when is a poop not just a poop? When it's done in your backyard with monotonous regularity and not by you. A New Mexico man has captured security footage of an unidentified woman who keeps defecating next to his house during her morning jogs. This is malicious fecal distribution, said the man who didn't want to be identified. The first incident took place on Easter Sunday, and at first he thought it must have just been a passing homeless person, but then it happened over and over. He says the defecations always happen on weekend mornings. In the video, he explains, a young blonde woman runs into the alley behind his house where he has a security camera, drops her pants, lets go, puts her shorts back without any wipe, nothing else, and continues her run. If it happens again, I'm going to run out there with a hose and hose her down and say bad human. He said he didn't take the footage of the police because he didn't believe the fecal matter would be taken seriously. This presenter says, buy a very large fierce doggy. Look after him, feed him and walk him, but give him a very long chain during the hours this prat runs and let him loose. I guarantee you she won't have time to even shed her shorts. You've been listening to The World at 8. I am Lynn Mozart and I wish you all a very cool and a very good night. Men accused of grooming, trafficking and sexually abusing a young girl was sent out to consider its verdict. Jurors retired at 12:50 p.m. Tuesday afternoon on the 16th of July after Judge Ian Pringle concluded his two-day review of the evidence heard during the 9-week Ribbon trial. The prosecution say the girl was plied with alcohol and drugs and repeatedly raped by a child sex gang in the High Wycombe area for almost 5 years. The girl was just 11 when the alleged abuse began in 2007. Oxford Crown Court was told how the girl, who can't be named for legal reasons, was groomed and raped by Iblal Fiaz, who forced her to perform sex acts on his friends and his brother Kazim Fiaz. Jurors were told how Fiaz threatened to burn down the girl's family home, rape her mother and ruin her reputation if she didn't go along with his demands. The 10 defendants are Iblal Fiaz, 21, of St George's Close, 4 counts of rape of a child under 13, 7 counts of rape, 2 counts of conspiracy to rape, 8 counts of trafficking for sexual exploitation, 2 charges of sexual activity with a child and 1 count of sexual assault in Ilford. Ireland, Somali Muslim gets a pass for slitting the throats of 4 goats in his home. Traps, unable to obey the law of the land. Taliban recruits starving orphans with sweets and 60p bribes. Food prices forecast to treble as world population soars. Thought for the day: when it's this hot? And finally, when is a poop not a poop? Before the news today, I noted with interest Kugelschreiber and his digging into names. Regarding mine, look up pre-Islamic history and the Mozart tribes. Apparently we were the one tribe who killed Muhammad's envoys. Now at some time we must have joined the Ottoman Empire in their invasion of Europe, and of course they reached the gates of Hungary. At this time a portion split off, stayed in the then Austro-Hungarian Empire and formed the basis of the Mozart family, of which I am a distant relative. If Kugelschreiber can dig anything else up, please feel free and let me know. UK news. Jury out to decide verdict in Wycombe Muslim grooming gang trial. Ribbon trial, jury remains out. The jury in the trial of 10
You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Monday the 22nd of July 2013. Jury out to decide verdict in Wycombe Muslim grooming gang trial. 3 convicted over